Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? 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 How are y'all doing? Welcome to Daily Devotion. Happy Thursday, happy Thursday, happy Thursday. As y'all jump on, let me know how y'all Thursday has been going so far. Thankful Thursday. Let me know how your day has been going so far. Let me know what city, what state that you all are chiming in from. Come on in and stay for a while. Listen in on our daily devotion because you never know which you may hear something that you may need. Stay for a while. Tap on that screen for 20 seconds. Share my live because you never know who may need what it is that I have to say. Today's daily devotion is called Change Your Routine. Change your routine. It's coming from Isaiah 42nd chapter 16th verse. Welcome for those of you joining me for the first time. My name is Sally D. Isaac. I am a wife. We are a blended family, 5 kids. One is an angel. Last year I have been ushered into my purpose. I have been ushered into my purpose after losing our oldest son in 2022. He unalived himself 1 week after his 18th birthday, and as a result of that, God has ushered me into my purpose where I have a ministry now called Gracefully, and I show people how you can continue to trust God and love on God in spite of what's going on, in spite of how life is life, and in spite of losing a loved one. You don't have to shun God. You don't have to be mad at God because your prayers wasn't answered the way you believe they should have been answered. Because in my case, he did not answer my prayer the way I wanted him to. I wanted my son to make a complete turnaround, but God completely came back and got him. So I have a ministry now called Grieving Gracefully, and part of that ministry is I come live Monday through Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we do a daily devotion. And today's topic is called Change Your Routine. Isaiah 42nd chapter 16th verse. I will lead them in path they have not known. Oh, thank you, Rob Booker. As attested by the law of requisite variety, the continued existence of any system requires the ability to cultivate variety in its internal structures. In physical exercise, for example, routines eventually become useless. I believe that. If you exercise the same way each time you work out, your muscles begin adapting and stop developing. You have to change your routine. You have to disorient them. This is true spiritually. One author writes, when I'm in a spiritual slump, 9 times out of 10, something sacred has become routine. I've been there before, okay? I'm sure it differs by personality, but one of the ways I snap out of a spiritual slump is by disturbing my routine and experimenting with spiritual disciplines. Sometimes all it takes is a small change in your routine. Volunteer at a local homeless shelter. Start keeping a gratitude journal. Get plugged into a small group or a Bible study. Take a day off. Do a personal retreat. Or just get up a little earlier in the morning and spend a little extra time with God. One of the small changes in routine that has helped me rejuvenate my devotional times is picking up my new translation of scripture. New words help me think new thoughts. In order to grow spiritually, you need consistency, structure, and discipline. But when you go through a spiritual dry spell, try changing your spiritual routine. Instead of doing things the way you have always done, try doing things differently. I will lead them in the path they have not known. God doesn't change, but he moves. And in order to get where God wants to take you, you must be willing to move with him. And that is so true. That is so true. One of the things that I changed in my routine is getting up early. As much as I don't want to get up early, y'all hear me? I don't want to get up early in the morning. I would prefer to sleep in. But, and then the thing is, like, at first it was because I wanted to get up at 5. Like a couple years ago, I started getting up at 5 o'clock because I was getting up before the kids. And I was like, that's going to be my alone time. That's the time I spend with God. And then after we lost our son, getting up at 5 o'clock, I guess I was trying to, like, I know when I spent that time with God, God was going to make me deal with stuff. And I didn't want to deal with stuff. Like, I didn't want to deal with my feelings. I didn't want to deal and sit in my grief with my son, because I know sometimes when we grieve, depending on who you lost, because I've lost cousins, I've lost my stepdad, I lost my real dad. I lost my real dad when I was 4. So I've had loss over the years. But with those loss, I've learned to tuck the emotion back here. Like, we'll grieve for a week or two, but then we get back into the routine of work, school, kids, and then we put it on the back burner. And then it might show up later, but for the most part, I tuck it and I move. But with my son, I couldn't tuck and move because this is my child, the child that I birthed, the one that was going through. It was meant for me to find it tomorrow is 10th anniversary of us losing. Who did you lose? It said losing. Did you lose your mom? My condolences. Well, we buried him. Oh wow. I'm so sorry. So with losing a child, that was a different kind of loss for me. It was me not wanting to deal with those emotions because it was so close to me. And I couldn't tuck those feelings. Like, I had to deal with them. And I stopped getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I stopped getting up at 5 o'clock. Because I knew. Because so I was getting up at 5. And one of the first things that God had me do when I was getting up at 5, like, we lost our son 1 week after his 18th birthday. He turned 21. He turned 18 December 21st. And then he unalived himself December 28th, 2022. So exactly 1 week after he turned 18, he unalived himself. We buried him in January of 2023. February of 2023, because it had become such a habit for me, my body was used to getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So even if I didn't want to get up at 5 o'clock, my body was going to wake up anyway. And one morning in February, God told me to forgive. So that was the first, and I was like, I don't want to forgive these people. I don't want to forgive nobody in connection. Like, I don't want to forgive nobody. And God was like, you got to forgive. And I'm like, I don't want to forgive nobody. And I was crying. I boo-hoo cried because I did not want to forgive nobody. A little bit of backstory. My son has started becoming in the streets. Y'all know how the story goes. Straight A student, start hanging around the wrong crowd. He started being in the street, started sneaking out of the house. He did some things in the street that he thought he was big enough and bad enough to do. The police came to our house that day to come and get him for what he done. And instead of him going to jail, he decided to unalive himself. So that's how we lost our son. And I was home with him when it happened. I was actually at the door talking to the police when he walked from out of the kitchen to his room and unalived himself. So God wanted me to forgive, like, because I felt like my city, they failed me because there were no mentoring programs. Like, I was reaching out to some of everybody. Trying to find a Thank you. Um, yeah, thank you, Ra. It is hard, Miss Brenda, but um, I was reaching out to find a program or something because everything that I tried is like there was nothing. My he was seeing a therapist like for over a year when it happened. Um, I had already talked to his school because he no longer wanted to play basketball anymore. He was a star athlete. He was playing AAU basketball. He was playing basketball since he was 5, and he started playing AAU ball in middle school. And like we had no programs outside of the basketball, like no mentoring program. I tried to get him into the military academy, but the way they have it set up now is if they don't volunteer to go, then they're not going to keep them. So when we went through the orientation, it was like if we ask your child do they want to stay, and if they tell us no they don't want to stay, then they're not going to take them. They're not going to allow them to come to the program. And I was like, I told him, I was like, you better tell them people you want to stay here. And he looked at me, and that man come over there. He was like, that man said, are you staying in the program? He looked at that man and said, no. So I was trying everything. And then God went like a couple days before this happened, I had did a sweep of his room to make sure that there were no pum-pums in his room, because he had already took one of mine like a year and a half earlier. That he took we have no idea where it at. We made a police report. We did an intervention with the police department with him behind that, and he never told us where it was, and they have never came back to us to say that they ever found my pum-pum. So if God sent me in his room, because that's the only time I would go in there, I would go in his room and do a sweep. And I did a sweep of his room, and I found nothing. I looked under the mattress and shoe boxes in the air vent. Like, I looked everywhere in that room, and there was no pum-pum. So when this happened, I was furious with the person that gave him the pum-pum. So that's another person. I don't know. I have no idea to this day who did it. But I had to forgive whoever gave it to him. Y'all know how hard that is? Y'all know how hard it is? Somebody who came and physically gave it to him. I had to forgive them. I had to forgive myself because I felt like I was a bad mom. I felt like I didn't do enough. But I had people around me who reassured me that I did everything. I did everything that I could. Like my husband said, I did everything. But I had to forgive. I had to forgive myself. Because I felt like I didn't do enough. Like I had to forgive everybody who around me who I felt like didn't do enough in my eyes. If I felt like in my eyes you ain't doing enough, then I had to forgive. And I kept telling God I didn't want to forgive because I wanted revenge. I wanted revenge on whoever that person was who gave him this pum-pum. Like, I wanted these people badly. Y'all hear me? But that morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, God had me forgive. And while I broke down crying as if I lost my son all over again, I forgave. It was a long list of people. A long list of people, y'all hear me? That I forgave. And I was boohoo crying when I did it. And I know I had to forgive. And because that day was so emotional, 5 o'clock in the morning, I stopped getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Because I was like, I don't want to spend time with God no more at 5 o'clock in the morning. He making me deal with these feelings that I don't want to deal with. So I don't want to. I don't want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning no more. I don't want to get up. So I stopped getting up. So I broke my routine of me getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I say in the fall, God came back to me. And he told me to start getting back up at 5 o'clock again. So I started getting back up at 5 o'clock. That was the fall of 2023. And then I started reading the Bible for real. Because Because, you know, we'll pretend like we're reading the Bible, but we don't really read the Bible for real. We'll go to church on Sundays and we'll open the Bible when the preacher tell us to go to a certain chapter and a certain verse. And then after that, we close the Bible and we're done and we don't pick up the Bible no more. You might read a scripture out of the Bible during the week, but you don't fully read the Bible. That was me too, like, that was me too. But fall of 2023, because God started taking me through a process when I started going through... when I started getting up at 5 o'clock, he started taking me through a process. He started separating me from my friends because I started hanging out with my friends and we was doing things together. But he started separating me from my friends and I started reading the Bible. And then I started changing and my mindset started changing. And I was more open to what it is, to my grief process. And while I was going through and feeling every part of grief, every time I came to God and asked him a question about my situation, he gave me an answer that helped me grieve as well. That's why I tell people, question God. He wants to answer you. He wants to answer you. Question him. Because when I questioned him, he came back with answers that I wasn't expecting. Husband, you'll check on the food in the oven. When I asked God why me, why this had to happen to me, God came back and tell me that it happened to him. So imagine you going to God and like, God, why you take my child? That was my firstborn. Like, why would you take him? My firstborn. Like, this is my son right here. My husband got me this necklace. This was him right here. And God said it happened to me. And I'm like, I bust out laughing because it's like, you right. It happened to you. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Daddy ain't did nothing. Go back that way. And that gave me a little comfort because that let me know that God is with me on this journey and he understands the pain that I'm going through. He understands the pain that I'm going through. And then I had also asked God to heal my marriage. I asked God to heal my marriage. In March of 2023, me and my husband went on this couple brunch at my cousin's church. And while we was there, the pastor had us, like, we been, go through the Bible and answer questions about marriage and what the Bible says about marriage and how we should treat each other. And then at the end, she had us, like, hold each other and embrace each other for the length of a song. I don't know if y'all ever did that, but that is so emotional. To hold your spouse for an entire song. I don't know if y'all ever hug your spouse. Y'all should try it. Put it on one of y'all favorite love songs and hold each other for that entire song. Like that's a level of connection. While we did that, I broke down crying with my husband. And while I was crying, God came to me and said, I had to take your son so I can heal your marriage. Y'all know how hard that was to hear? I cried even more. He said he had to take my son in order to heal my marriage. If y'all have a blended family, then y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay? Because it ain't easy blending a family. I'm not saying it can't be easy, but it's a task. Okay, it's a task. And my son, he was my only child until I met my husband. He was the only child until I think I met my husband when he was 8 or 9. So it was just me and him until I met my husband when he was 8 or 9. And so they always bump heads because at times he'll feel like I should get back with his daddy. And I was like, I never get back with your daddy. Like, that's out of the question. No, I never get back with your daddy. And so they constantly butt heads. And then when he got older, And you know, when they become teenagers, they start smelling themselves. And then he was almost the same height as my husband. My husband's 6'3", he was 6'2". And so, like, they really was butting heads. But God told me in order for him to heal my marriage, he had to take my son. And as hard as that was for me to hear, it comforted me. And then the next thing I asked God to do, I asked him to heal my broken heart. I was at a conference. I don't know if a lot of y'all probably heard of her, but it's a prophet on social media called Tiffany Montgomery. I follow her ministry. And we went to one of her conferences that year. Me and some friends met up, and we went to her conference that was in Texas. And I remember writing at the top of my notebook, I think it was her Millions conference we went to. And at the top of my notebook, at the beginning of the conference, I wrote, God, heal my broken heart. That was a Friday. By the time I got home on Sunday, God had healed my broken heart. So if you are ready for God to heal that broken part of you, the part of you that you don't want to touch and you don't want nobody to talk about, if you're ready, pray and ask God to heal that broken heart. Because I wouldn't been able to sit here and talk to y'all if I wasn't able to question God and ask him things about why I lost my son, what could I have done. Because he told me, when I want to know, I'm like, maybe I could have done something. Maybe, because I used to think woulda, shoulda, coulda. And I was like, maybe if he saw me standing in his doorway, he wouldn't have pulled the pum. I'm like, maybe if his sister or brother walked past the room, maybe he wouldn't have do the pum. Maybe if he locked eyes with me, maybe he wouldn't do it. But God told me he was going to do it anyway. God said he was going to do it anyway, y'all. So when I got back into my routine of getting up at 5 o'clock and I started reading the Bible, for real this time, for real. So that was the end of fall of 2023 coming into 2024. And I'm still getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would get up 5 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, I will get up whatever time my body get up. And it don't be late. It might be, 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. A lot of times it be before my kids get up. And so I still, kept that 5 o'clock routine. And then God started telling me things. So then, like, one of my friends like, Sally, you gonna write a book? Nope. Why do I need to write a book? I said, what about my life is so grand that I need to write a book? I said, girl, let me talk to the Lord, because I don't know nothing about that. 3 or 4 people came to me after that asking me, you writing a book? And I'm like, why am I writing a book? I'm now like, Lord, why these people keep coming to me about why am I writing a book? Lord, am I writing a book? Spring, summer of 2024, the Lord said, yep. See what happens when you change your routine? And I'm like, what am I writing? Because what do you want me to write? I don't know what you want me to write. So he had me write a grief guided journal. And the things that I did to get through my journey. Because remember I told you, like, I just felt like I was getting closer to God. I didn't think I was doing anything special. I'm thinking I'm just spending time with the Lord. I'm getting up 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm spending time reading the word. I'm journaling. I'm fasting. I'm praying. I'm like, Lord, all I'm doing is getting closer to you. What do you want me to put in this journal? Like, what am I doing? And so, on the day that I hated y'all, the day I wanted nothing to do with, y'all hear me? The day, the Lord knew I hated this day, because in 2023, his dad we did a balloon release at his gravesite, in 2023. That was the 1 year, and that would have been his 19th birthday. And we did a balloon release. Now, mind you, I didn't even want to go. I didn't want to go. My husband told me I had need to go, but I didn't want to go. But I went, and that was the last time I went. Because I don't see the need to go visit his gravesite, honestly. Now, I visit my dad. Let me say, I used to visit my daddy's, and I would put a flower on there for Father's Day. But with losing my son, it's like he ain't in it. Like his body is there, but he's not there. So why am I going to a cemetery for what? And so I was there the day we buried him. And then I went back 1 year later on his birthday, and we did a balloon release. And I haven't been back. I didn't go last year. I don't. And then the day, the anniversary of his death, his dad, they had a memorial or something that they had. I didn't go to that because I'm like, what am I celebrating? What am I celebrating on the anniversary of his death? Because he unalived himself, I was like, what am I celebrating? Because unaliving yourself is something negative. So why would I want to celebrate that? I didn't understand. Like, I couldn't grasp that concept. But in 2024, I told y'all I started walking in my purpose. People started asking me to come on podcasts. After God told me I was going to write a book, I started going on podcasts and telling my story. I've been on a TV show and tell my story. On one of the TV shows, a pastor, because I told her, I was like, I don't go to the gravesite, and I said, I don't see the 28th. I said, I don't even like that day. And she was like, maybe God is going to, she said, maybe it'll be a day of celebration. And I kept thinking, like, what she mean, a celebrate? What am I going to celebrate on the 28th? Not even knowing. She knew something, but I didn't know. That God was going to take what was the worst day of my life and make it the best day of one of the best days, we'll put it like that. One of the best days of my life. Because on the anniversary of my son's passing on December 28, 2024, I became a published author. Yes, that was my book release. I released my book on that day. I'm like, that wasn't even a part of my plan. That was not a part of my plan. Writing a book was never on any dream boards that I did. It was never a goal of mine to write a book. So for me to write this journal, you know, it was only God. Yes, Ray. It was. Yes, Miss Booker. It was only God. It was only God. And now I'm a published author, and this journal is available on Amazon. It's a guided grief journal called Grieving Gracefully by Sally D. Isaac. If you would like to pick it up, you can go to the link in my bio and click on my website, and it has the Amazon link. The first thing on there called, I think is Grieving Gracefully. And you can click on that and purchase my journal. But change your routine. I would have never thought that when I changed my routine, the girl who wanted to be a lawyer all her life, I thought I was going to be the female Matlock. I love Matlock growing up, and I tell my mama, I'm going to be Matlock. And I was a paralegal for 10 years, and God called me from my job in 2019, and I haven't worked a job since 2019. And some of y'all probably just joining me for the first time. But in 2019, I asked God what was my purpose. 2020, he told me to leave my job in 2019, but I didn't, because we was planning a wedding. And I was like, Lord, I couldn't hear that right. You want me to leave my job? We planning a wedding here. I ain't hear that right. 2020 came. And you know, they started a little bit talking about the sickness around the world. And then they started talking about COVID. March, I found out I was pregnant with our last child. The next day after I found out I was pregnant, they shut the world down. So can you imagine? God told you to come home in 2019 and you didn't. The next thing you know, there's a pandemic. And you find out you pregnant at the same time and they shut the world down. I said, oh, Lord, you for real? You want me to come home for real? I thought I heard you wrong. All right. I didn't leave my job right then. I didn't tell my boss at the law firm that I was pregnant until Mother's Day weekend of 2020. And then June, I turned in my 2-week notice, and July 1st was the last day I worked the job. After asking God what was my purpose. So if y'all want to know your purpose, it may take a minute, because He's going to start preparing you for that purpose. Because that's what He started doing. He started preparing me for my purpose in 2019 when I asked Him what was my purpose. That's when I started getting closer to God. That's when I started learning more about prayer and fasting, because you know they talk about it in church, but I didn't still get a good understanding of what it fully meant to pray and fast until I found the prophet that I told you about. One of my friends introduced me to her, Tiffany Montgomery, and I started following her ministry, and she has a praying and fasting ministry, and that's when I learned more about praying and fasting. And then I lost my son. So God started preparing me, because He knew I was going to lose my child. So He brought me home from work so I could spend more time with him. From 2020 to 2022, I was spending more time with him, because He knew 2 years after I came home that I would no longer have my oldest child no more. And then in 2024, I walked into my purpose. So if you've been praying and asking God for something and you haven't seen it yet, it's coming. Hold on. Change your routine. Maybe you need to wake up early like I did and spend some more time with God. Maybe you need to incorporate prayer and fasting into your routine. Maybe you need to start journaling gratitude, doing a gratitude journal. Maybe you need to volunteer at a local homeless shelter. Maybe you ain't worshiping. Spend some time worshiping. Because I know when I worship and I turn on my music, that's when I hear from God so clear. When I go into a worship in my house and I'm going in full worship. Hey Carolyn, how you doing? When I go into worship, because I made a vow to God back in 2021 or 2022 that I made a vow that I will worship Him before I worry. So anytime somebody come to me with bad news, I don't immediately get mad or sad about it. I take in what they say. I might sometimes get a little emotional, and then I have to suck it up, because I'm like, oh, I made that vow to God that I will worship before I worry. I take what they say, I write it in my journal, then I go into a worship. When my husband told me, the doctor said that he had they heard an extra heartbeat in his heart, and I was like, oh no, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. I don't know what they talk about. I went on a fast. I went into worship. When my husband went, they put a heart monitor on him for like a week, no, about 3 or 4 days or something like that. He had to wear a heart monitor They wanted him to wear it because they wanted to see if that was just something they heard at the office or it happens during the day. And when my husband got his results last week, his doctor said, your heart is perfectly fine. I said, thank you, Jesus. That was just a fluke. Okay? I worship before I worry. Because I know that my God, He's the protocol breaker. My God don't abide by man-made rules. Okay? So don't let life and affect you and stop you from believing how big God is. Don't let the people on your job get you so mad that you forget that God got you there on assignment. Don't you let the people around you make you forget the promises that God gave you. He's a God that He cannot lie. So if God made a promise to you, that promise is going to come to pass because He can't lie. He can't lie. So don't ever think that God ain't going to answer your prayers. God answered my prayer about my son. It wasn't the way I wanted, but He answered my prayer. I asked God for my son to make a complete turnaround. I thought he was gonna, what I wanted was for him to come out the street, get saved, and show the boys, young men in our community that you can come off the street and still go off to college. I wanted him to go back because he was in high school. He was in 12th grade when this happened. And he can, turn his life around and get a college scholarship and go off to college. That's what I wanted. But instead, God flipped it, and He turned it around, and He came and got him. And I got the testimony instead. I got the testimony. I was pushed into my purpose. He gave me strength where I am now showing you all that you don't have to shun God. You don't have to turn away from God. You can lean into God, and God will hold you in the palm of His hands when you're going through grief. He will heal your broken heart. He will give you a strength. He will give you peace that surpasses all understanding. All you got to do is trust in Him and change your routine. Change your routine. I pray that you all were blessed by today's daily devotion. I'm here Monday through Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I go live on TikTok, and I also go live on Facebook. If you caught the end, you can come over here to my Facebook and catch the replay. I also started uploading them on my YouTube channel. You can follow me on YouTube. If you click the link in my bio on my Facebook and my Instagram, you'll find my YouTube channel on there, and you can watch the replays of my daily devotions on there. Change your routine. Isaiah 42:16. I will lead them in the paths that they have not known. God, change my routine and led me on a path that I did not know, because I never thought that I would be a published author. I never thought that I would be asked to speak on platforms and tell my story and be on TV. I never thought that this would be my life. But once I changed my routine, God changed my life. Okay? I pray you all have an amazing night on purpose, and I will see y'all tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See y'all later. Bye-bye.